My sister mocked my thrift store dress at her baby shower. Don't worry, we know you can't afford nice things. I just smiled. A week later, she found out who paid for her nursery and the designer behind it. The dress was a whisper of silk, the color of a faded lavender field, and it had cost me exactly $7.50. It felt soft against my skin, a secret comfort in a room buzzing with tension that only I seemed to feel. My sister, Clarissa, glided through her baby shower like a queen surveying her court. Every gift, every compliment, every fawning cousin was a tribute she had earned simply by existing. I sat in a corner, nursing a glass of sparkling water, trying to be invisible. But Clarissa's eyes, sharp and predatory, always found me. She made her way over, her perfectly round belly leading the way, a smug smile plastered on her face. She stopped in front of me, her gaze raking over my dress with theatrical disdain. The small circle of conversation around us fell silent. "Oh, Amelia," she said, her voice dripping with pity so thick it was practically syrup. "That's a very quaint little dress." She reached out and pinched the fabric between her manicured fingers. "Thrift store again?" I didn't answer, just kept the ghost of a smile on my lips. It was a mask I had perfected over 30 years. She turned to her audience of adoring friends and relatives. "Don't worry, everyone. We know you can't afford nice things," she announced, patting my shoulder with a condescending rhythm. "It's just so sweet of you to even show up." A few people tittered nervously. My aunt shot me a worried look, but I just smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a smile forged in the fires of 1,000 similar humiliations, a smile that held secrets. Because in that moment, as she mocked my $7 dress, she had no idea that I was the reason she was standing in a $200,000 home. She had no idea that the custom-built, hand-painted fairy tale nursery waiting upstairs for her unborn daughter, the one she'd been bragging about for months, the one designed by the elusive and exclusive artist known only as Celeste, was my gift, my secret, my last, desperate attempt to buy her love. And as I held her gaze, my quiet smile was the only thing holding back the tidal wave of truth that was coming for her in exactly 1 week. The drive home was a blur of rain-slicked streets and the rhythmic thud of the windshield wipers, each sweep like a metronome counting down the seconds of my composure. The smile had long since dissolved, leaving the raw, aching muscles of my face to tremble. I pulled into my small driveway, the engine cutting out with a sigh that seemed to echo my own exhaustion. Inside my little bungalow, the silence was a balm. This was my sanctuary, the one place her voice couldn't reach unless I allowed it. I walked straight to my studio in the back of the house, the walls covered in sketches, fabric swatches, and color palettes. In the center of the room, on a large drafting table, lay the final schematics for Clarissa's nursery. I ran my fingers over the intricate drawing of the mural that now adorned the main wall of that room in her house. It was a sprawling, magical forest scene, with gentle fawns, wise old owls, and tiny glowing fairies hidden among the leaves. Each animal had been meticulously rendered to have a soft, storybook quality. I had spent over 200 hours painting it myself, on massive canvases that were then professionally installed to look like a seamless part of the wall. The crib, a custom piece of carved white birch, was designed to look as if it had grown from the floorboards. The mobile hanging above it was made of hand-blown glass stars that would catch the morning light and splinter it into 1,000 tiny rainbows. It was a masterpiece of love and hope, a room built to cradle a new life in unequivocal beauty, and she had just mocked my dress. The irony was so bitter, it felt like I had swallowed poison. I sank onto my stool, the professional pride I felt for my work warring with the deep, familial hurt that had been a constant companion my entire life. This was the dynamic, wasn't it? I give and she takes. I create and she diminishes. It had been this way since we were children. I was the quiet, artistic one, always with paint on my fingers and my head in the clouds. Clarissa was the pragmatic, popular one, the straight A student, the debate team captain. Our parents, bless their hearts, never knew how to handle the two of us. They saw Clarissa's ambition as a sign of success, and my creativity as a charming but ultimately useless hobby. "Oh, Amelia, that's a lovely drawing," my mother would say, glancing at a sketch I'd spent a week on. "But did you see Clarissa's report card? All A's again. She's going to be a lawyer, you know." Clarissa learned early on that my passion was her weapon. When I won my first art competition in middle school, she'd accidentally spilled a bottle of ink all over my winning piece the night before the awards ceremony. She cried and apologized so convincingly that I ended up comforting her. When I got a scholarship to a prestigious art and design college, she told everyone I was going to a community college for finger painting because I wasn't smart enough for a real university. Her words, repeated by others, chipped away at my confidence until I started to believe them myself. I became timid, hesitant to share my work, to claim my own talent. Starting my own interior design business had been an act of rebellion, but a quiet one. I couldn't bear to put my own name on it, to attach Amelia Grant to something so personal, so vulnerable to her scorn. So, I created Celeste. Celeste was everything I wasn't. Confident, bold, expensive. She was a brand, a myth. I built her reputation slowly, through word of mouth and a carefully curated portfolio. I never advertised. My clients came to me, hearing whispers of a designer who created created not just rooms, but entire worlds. And it worked. Celeste became a sensation among the city's elite. I was finally successful, but it was a secret identity. Only my closest friend and business manager, David, knew the truth. To my family, I was still just Amelia, the struggling artist who made a little money doing decorations for people. The nursery project had started 3 months ago. Clarissa and her husband, Mark, had just bought their new house, a massive, sterile new build that screamed new money. Clarissa was obsessed with having the perfect nursery, something that would be the envy of her social circle. She'd heard about Celeste through one of her husband's colleagues. She'd gushed to me over the phone about this mysterious, brilliant designer. "You wouldn't believe her work, Amelia," she'd said, her voice full of a reverence she never used for me. "It's like something out of a dream. Of course, she's astronomically expensive. Mark said we can't possibly afford her full services, but I'm going to try to get a consultation anyway, just to be able to say I did." A wicked, thrilling idea had sparked in my mind. What if I gave her the one thing she wanted most? What if I, the sister she thought so little of, was the one to deliver this impossible dream? It felt like a gamble. Maybe, just maybe, a gesture this grand, this selfless, would finally break through the wall she had built between us. Maybe she would see me, not the charity case in a thrift store dress, but the sister who loved her, the artist who could create magic. So, I had David reach out to Mark. The offer was simple. Celeste would design and create the nursery as a gift, a gesture of goodwill to a new family. There was one condition. Celeste's identity was to remain a complete secret until the project was finished. Mark, stunned and overjoyed, agreed immediately. He promised to handle Clarissa, to tell her that a wealthy client of his had gifted them the design package as a corporate perk. Clarissa, a notorious snob, bought the story without question. The idea that a rich stranger had bestowed this upon her fit perfectly with her sense of entitlement. For 3 months, I poured my soul into that room. I met with Clarissa under the guise of being Celeste's assistant project manager. I wore business suits, tied my hair back in a severe bun, and used a clipped, professional tone. She didn't recognize me, or rather, she didn't see me. She saw a subordinate, someone to order around. She was demanding, dismissive, and arrogant. She treated the assistant with the same casual cruelty she reserved for waitstaff and, well, me. No, the shade of blue is all wrong," she'd snap, looking at a paint chip I'd spent days custom mixing. "Celeste would know better. Are you sure you're conveying my vision properly?" "Celeste and I discussed it. This shade has more depth and will look warmer in the afternoon light," I'd reply, my voice even. "Well, I don't like it. Tell her to fix it." I'd go back to the studio and mix the exact same shade, put it in a different tin, and present it to her a week later. "Celeste formulated this one herself," I'd say, and she would clap her hands in delight. "Oh, it's perfect. See? I knew she'd get it right." Each interaction was a small death, a fresh slice into an old wound. But I held on, telling myself it would all be worth it in the end. When she saw the finished room, when she knew it was from me, she would finally understand. The baby shower was supposed to be the final hurdle. The installation was complete, the room sealed off until the official reveal Mark had planned for the following weekend. I just had to endure one last family event as plain, poor Amelia. I had chosen the lavender dress deliberately. It was simple, elegant, and understated. I felt pretty in it. I hadn't anticipated that its secondhand nature would become the centerpiece of my public humiliation. Her words echoed in my head. "We know you can't afford nice things." She had no idea that my hourly rate as Celeste was probably more than her monthly mortgage payment. She had no idea that the quaint little dress was a conscious choice, a rejection of the materialistic world she worshipped. A ping from my phone brought me back to the present. It was a text from my cousin, Lena. "Are you okay?" What she said was monstrous. "I'm so sorry." Lena was one of the few family members who saw through Clarissa's facade. She had been the one to pull me into the kitchen after the incident, her eyes blazing with anger on my behalf. "I'm fine," I texted back, the lie feeling flimsy even in digital form. "Used to it. That's the problem, Amelia. You shouldn't have to be." She was right. I shouldn't have to be. I looked again at the nursery designs, at the embodiment of my hope for a better relationship. The hope felt foolish now, naive. The beautiful room upstairs in her cold, empty house felt less like a gift and more like a monument to my own stupidity. The original plan had been for David to send a simple card with the final paperwork, a card that would read, "Congratulations on your new arrival. With love, Celeste, Amelia Grant." A quiet, gentle reveal. But after today, that didn't feel right. It felt like letting her off the hook. It felt like another instance of me absorbing the blow and pretending it didn't hurt. The week that followed was a strange limbo. I threw myself into other projects, trying to distract myself from the ticking clock. Clarissa, meanwhile, was on a victory tour. She posted dozens of photos from the shower, making sure to tag everyone except me. She sent a gushing, syrupy thank you text to the family group chat, praising everyone for their incredibly generous gifts. There was a pointed sentence at the end, "And thank you to those who couldn't give much but came to share in our joy. Your presence was a gift in itself." The passive aggression was so her, a stiletto heel veiled in velvet. My mother called me 2 days later. "Amelia, darling, I noticed you left the shower a bit early. Is everything all right?" "I was just tired, Mom," I said, said, the familiar excuse tasting like ash in my mouth. Well, you know how Clarissa can be. She gets excited. She doesn't mean anything by it. Her hormones are all over the place. There it was. The excuse. The justification. The reason Clarissa had been allowed to become the person she was. For her, there was always an excuse. Hormones, stress, a bad day. For me, there was only the expectation of quiet endurance. I know, Mom. She's just so thrilled about this nursery, Mom continued, oblivious. This mysterious designer has really outdone herself. Clarissa says it's going to be featured in an architecture magazine. Can you believe it? My daughter, a trendsetter. Our daughter, I thought, a bitter correction. Our other daughter, the one you ignore, is the one who made it happen. But I said nothing. The time for words was coming. On Friday night, the eve of the reveal, my resolve wavered. I was sitting in my studio, the rain drumming against the windows again, and a wave of profound sadness washed over me. What was I even trying to accomplish? Was I trying to hurt her? To shame her? Or was I still, after all these years, just a little girl who wanted her big sister to like her? Maybe I should just let it go. Let her have the room. Let her believe it was a gift from a stranger. I could keep my secret, keep my distance, and we could continue our fractured, painful dance for the rest of our lives. It was familiar. It was, in its own way, safe. I picked up the phone and called David. He listened patiently as I poured out all my fear and doubt. I don't know if I can do this, David. It feels cruel. Cruel? He asked, his voice calm and steady, the anchor I so often needed. Amelia, she publicly humiliated you. She has been emotionally abusing you for your entire life. Telling the truth isn't cruel. It's self-preservation. This isn't about punishing her. It's about you finally claiming your own story. You built that room. You are Celeste. You are a brilliant, successful woman. Why are you letting her edit you out of your own life? His words cut through the fog of my self-doubt. He was right. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reality. It was about ending the lie that I was small and she was big. It was about standing in my own truth, even if it caused an earthquake. Okay, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Okay, the plan is back on, but I'm changing it. I wasn't going to let a card do the talking. I wasn't going to hide behind David or an email. I was going to be there. I deserved to see her face when she finally saw me. The next day, I dressed with purpose. I didn't choose a power suit or anything that felt like a costume. I put on a simple pair of dark jeans, a soft cashmere sweater in a deep emerald green, and my favorite leather boots. I looked like myself. I looked like Amelia. When I arrived at their house, Mark met me at the door, his face pale with anxiety. Amelia, thank you for coming, he stammered. Clarissa is upstairs. She's ecstatic. The magazine photographer is here setting up. She has no idea. It's okay, Mark, I said, giving him a small, reassuring smile. Where do you want me? He led me into the living room, where my parents and a few of Clarissa's closest friends were gathered. They all looked at me with mild surprise. Amelia, what a surprise to see you, my mother said, kissing the air next to my cheek. Mark invited me, I said simply, taking a seat on the armchair in the corner, content to wait. I could hear Clarissa upstairs, her voice high and commanding as she directed the photographer. Yes, the light is best from this angle. Make sure you get a shot of the hand-carved crib. It's a bespoke piece from Celeste. She's a genius, an absolute genius. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. After a few more minutes, Mark called everyone upstairs. Clarissa is ready for the grand tour. We all trooped up the wide staircase. The nursery door was closed. Clarissa stood before it, glowing, a hand resting on her belly. She looked like a Madonna, serene and beatific. She saw me lingering at the back of the group, and a flicker of annoyance crossed her face. But it was quickly replaced by her magnanimous hostess smile. All right, everyone, she announced, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. For the past 3 months, I have been working with the most incredible designer to create a sanctuary for our little girl. I wanted it to be perfect, a place of magic and dreams. I am so thrilled to finally share it with all of you. She pushed open the door. A collective gasp went through the small crowd. The room was breathtaking. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, hitting the glass stars of the mobile and scattering rainbows across the floor. The mural was even more vibrant and alive in person, the forest scene looking so real you felt you could step right into it. The room was silent for a long moment as everyone took it in. Clarissa, it's a masterpiece, one of her friends breathed, her eyes wide. My goodness, my mother whispered, her hand over her heart. It's the most beautiful room I've ever seen. Clarissa beamed, soaking in the praise. Isn't it? Celeste just understood my vision perfectly. Every detail is custom. The cost was, well, I can't even bear to think about it. We were so incredibly lucky to have it gifted to us. She turned to the photographer. Did you get their reactions? We need to capture this moment. She began to walk them through the details, pointing out the silk canopy over the crib, the hand-knotted rug that felt like moss underfoot, the bookshelf built to look like a tree trunk. She was reciting the very design notes I had walked her through when she thought I was a lowly assistant. I stayed near the door watching her, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. This was my work, my soul, and she was claiming it as her vision, her triumph. Mark cleared his throat nervously. Honey, he said, his voice a little shaky. There's one more thing. About the gift. Clarissa waved a dismissive hand. Oh, Mark, not now. Let's not talk about boring business stuff. No, Clarissa, this is important. important, he insisted. Walking over to the changing table, he picked up a small, elegant silver frame that had been placed there. We had arranged this part. He turned it around. It wasn't a picture. It was a small, beautifully calligraphed card. The final piece from the designer arrived this morning. He handed it to her. Clarissa took it, her smile indulgent. She read the card aloud, her voice full of theatrical flair. For the newest branch on our family tree, may your life be as beautiful as your dreams. She paused, her brow furrowing slightly as she continued reading the signature at the bottom. Her voice became a confused whisper. With all my love, your sister, Amelia. The silence in the room was absolute, a sudden vacuum of sound. Every head turned from the card in her hand to my face, standing by the door. Clarissa looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief, searching mine for an answer. The smug certainty drained from her face, replaced by a pale, slack-jawed confusion. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Mark, what is this? It's a mistake." Mark shook his head, looking at me with a mixture of pity and gratitude. "It's not a mistake, honey." "Amelia?" My mother's voice was a confused squeak. "What does this mean?" I took a deep breath, the air finally returning to my lungs. I pushed off from the doorframe and walked slowly into the center of the room I had created. I ran my hand along the smooth, cool wood of the crib I had designed. "It means," I said, my voice clear and steady, loud enough for everyone to hear, "that there is no Celeste." I turned to face my sister, whose face was now a mask of dawning horror. "There's only me. I designed it. I painted the mural. I sourced the fabrics. It was my gift to you, Clarissa, to you and my niece." The transformation was instantaneous and terrifying. The confusion on her face curdled into pure, unadulterated rage. Her skin flushed a blotchy red, and her eyes, which moments before had been sparkling with triumph, now narrowed into slits of venom. The serene Madonna was gone, replaced by a cornered animal. "You're lying," she hissed, the words sharp and low. The photographer, sensing a dramatic shift, subtly lowered his camera. Her friends began to inch away, their faces a mixture of shock and discomfort. "Why would I lie about this, Clarissa?" I asked, my voice remaining calm. I felt strangely detached, as if I were watching a play. "To embarrass me!" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "This is just like you, always trying to make everything about you. You couldn't stand that I had something beautiful, something you could never afford, so you had to invent this insane story to ruin it for me." My father finally spoke up, his voice uncertain. "Clarissa, calm down. Let's just talk about this." "Talk about what?" she spat, turning on him. "That she's a delusional liar? I worked with Celeste's assistant for months, a professional woman, not her." She gestured at me as if I were something she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. That was the moment the dam inside me broke, not with a roar, but with a quiet, steely certainty. "The assistant's name was Anna," I said, my voice cutting through her tirade. "She was 5'7", had brown hair she wore in a bun, and a small tattoo of a star on her left wrist. She wore a gray pantsuit to your first consultation, and a navy one to the second. You complained that her perfume was too strong, and you sent back the first 3 fabric swatches for the glider because you said the texture was uninspired. The shade of blue you loved so much for the walls is called Evening Dove, and it's the exact same shade you rejected the first time I showed it to you." I took another step closer, my gaze locked on hers. "I was there for every meeting, Clarissa. I listened to every demand, every insult. You just never bothered to look at my face. The specifics, the undeniable details landed like physical blows." She staggered back a step, her hand flying to her throat. The color drained from her face completely. She knew. In that instant, she knew I was telling the truth. But the truth wasn't a relief. It wasn't a moment of connection. For her, it was the ultimate humiliation. It wasn't that her poor sister had done something kind. It was that her poor sister had held a power over her, had known something she didn't. She had been the fool in a story where she was supposed to be the queen. "Get out," she whispered, her voice trembling with a rage so deep it was almost silent. "Clarissa," my mother started, stepping forward. "Get out!" she screamed, her voice echoing in the perfect, magical room. She pointed a shaking finger at me. "You did this to ruin my day, my perfect day. You are so jealous of me, of my life, of this baby. You couldn't just be happy for me, you had to make it about you." "Jealous?" I asked, a humorless laugh escaping my lips. "Jealous of what, Clarissa? Your cruelty? Your bottomless need to make everyone around you feel small so you can feel big? I didn't do this to hurt you. I did this because, God help me, I love you. I thought if I did something so big and so beautiful that you couldn't deny it, you might finally see me. But you don't see the gift, do you? You only see how it makes you look." I looked around at the stunned faces of her friends, at my parents, who looked utterly lost. "I think she's right," I said, my voice soft again. "I think I should go." I turned and walked out of the room, not waiting for a response. I walked down the stairs, through the cavernous foyer, and out the front door into the bright, indifferent sunshine. I didn't look back. I got in my car and drove away, the silence of my own company a profound relief. The earthquake had happened. The ground had split open, and I had no idea what the landscape would look like when the dust settled. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. The calls started before before I even got home. First, my mother. Her voice was frantic, pleading. Amelia, you have to apologize. You embarrassed her in front of all her friends. You know how sensitive she is. You have to go back there and fix this. Fix what, Mom? I asked, my voice weary. Fix the fact that I gave my sister a gift? Or fix the fact that she's a bully who can't stand it when I'm not her victim? Don't use that language, Amelia. It's not helpful. This is family. You two have always had your squabbles. You just need to talk it out. No, I said, and the word felt solid, a stone in my hand. No more talking it out. No more smoothing things over. I am done. You and Dad have spent 30 years making excuses for her. You taught her that her feelings were more important than mine. You taught her that as long as she was successful on the outside, her behavior on the inside didn't matter. I'm not participating in that anymore. I could hear her sputtering on the other end, a litany of, but she's your sister, and family is everything, but it sounded like it was coming from a great distance. I was disconnecting from the satellite of her expectations. I have to go, Mom, I said, and I hung up before she could protest. Next was Mark. He sounded exhausted. Amelia, I am so sorry. I don't know what to say. She's not well. She's locked herself in the bedroom. She says you've ruined the baby's room for her, that she can't even look at it now. A fresh wave of pain hit me, sharp and unexpected. The thought of that beautiful room, my creation, being tainted by her rage was agonizing. What is she going to do? I asked quietly. I don't know, he sighed. She's talking about having it all painted over, selling the furniture. Amelia, the gift was the kindest thing anyone has ever done for us. For what it's worth, I see it. I see you, and I'm grateful. Thank you, Mark, I said, and I meant it. His validation was a small drop of water in a vast desert, but it was something. Take care of yourself. The fallout over the next few weeks was brutal. Clarissa went on a full-scale smear campaign. She told the family I had concocted the entire scheme to publicly shame her for my own financial failures. She claimed I was mentally unstable, obsessed with her, and pathologically jealous. Some relatives, the ones who always orbited her son, believed her completely. I received a few sanctimonious calls from aunts and uncles, telling me I needed to seek professional help and make amends with my poor pregnant sister. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just listened, said, "Thank you for your concern," and then I blocked their numbers. My parents tried to mediate, arranging family meetings that I refused to attend. They couldn't understand my refusal to engage. To them, my silence was an admission of guilt, or at least of stubbornness. They saw family as a single entity that had to be preserved at all costs, even if one part of it was cancerous, slowly killing the others. My boundary was, to them, a betrayal. Our relationship grew strained, polite but distant. The one bright spot was Lena. She called me the day after the reveal, her voice full of awe. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it. I am so damn proud of you." She became my rock, the one person I could talk to without having to justify my feelings. She had seen Clarissa's cruelty her whole life and felt vindicated on my behalf. David was my other pillar. He handled the professional side of things. The magazine that was supposed to feature the nursery called him confused after Clarissa abruptly canceled the photo shoot. David, with my permission, told the editor the real story, not the petty family drama, but the truth about the designer. He told them that Celeste was Amelia Grant and that the nursery was a personal project. Intrigued, the magazine asked if they could interview me instead. For the first time, I said yes. I sat down with a journalist and told my story. I talked about my passion for design, about my belief in creating spaces that were not just beautiful but emotionally resonant. I talked about the philosophy behind Celeste, the idea of creating a persona to protect the vulnerable artist inside. I didn't mention Clarissa by name. I didn't need to. I simply referred to the nursery as a deeply personal project that, unfortunately, was not received in the spirit it was given. The article came out a month later. It was a beautiful, multi-page spread with photos I had taken of the room before the reveal. The headline was, "Celeste Unmasked, the Secret Genius of Amelia Grant." The article changed everything. My business exploded. The mystique of Celeste combined with the raw honesty of Amelia Grant was a powerful combination. Clients were lining up, not just for the designs, but for the story. I was no longer hiding. I was finally fully myself. I hired 2 junior designers and a new project manager to handle the influx of work. I was successful, not just secretly, but openly, loudly, and on my own terms. 2 months after the reveal, Clarissa's baby was born, a little girl named Lily. My mother called to tell me. Her voice was hesitant. "Clarissa is asking if you would like to come to the hospital." My heart clenched. A baby. A tiny, innocent new person in our broken family. For a fleeting moment, the old hope flickered. Maybe motherhood had changed her. Maybe holding her daughter had softened the hard edges of her heart. "How is she?" I asked. "She's tired, but she's okay. The baby is beautiful, Amelia. She looks a little like you did when you were born." The emotional hook was expertly cast, but I was no longer a fish so easily caught. "Mom, is she asking because she wants to see me? Or is she asking because you told her she should?" A long pause on the other end of the line. "A little of both," she admitted quietly. "Did she ever have the nursery painted over?" I asked. Another pause. "No," Mom said. "Mark wouldn't let her, so my niece was sleeping in the room I had built for her. That was something. something, a small victory, but it wasn't enough. I'm not ready, Mom, I said. An invitation that comes through a third party isn't a real invitation. If Clarissa wants to see me, she has my number. She needs to be the one to call. She needs to be the one to apologize. Amelia, she just gave birth. She will not apologize now. You are being unreasonable. Then I will wait, I said. I can wait forever. She never called. I sent a gift, a beautiful edition of classic fairy tales and a silver rattle, directly to Lily. I included a simple card. Welcome to the world, little one. Your Aunt Amelia. I received no acknowledgement. The months turned into a year. My life found a new rhythm. I went to therapy, where I began to untangle the complex knot of guilt, anger, and grief that came with estranging myself from my family. I learned that setting a boundary wasn't an act of aggression, but an act of self-love. I learned that it was okay to grieve the sister I wished I had, while simultaneously protecting myself from the sister I actually had. My relationship with my parents slowly began to heal, but it was different. The old dynamic was gone. I no longer sought their approval. I shared my successes with them, but I no longer needed their validation. We found a new, more honest way of being, one where I was no longer the designated peacemaker. It was fragile, but it was real. One autumn afternoon, about a year and a half after the baby shower, I was in a small bookstore downtown when I saw her. Clarissa was pushing a stroller, and a little girl with big, curious eyes and a tuft of blonde hair was sitting in it. Our eyes met across a display of bestsellers. For a second, the world stopped. All the history, all the pain, all the love, it was all there in that one shared glance. She looked tired. There were lines around her eyes I'd never seen before. Motherhood, or maybe life, had humbled her in some small way. I thought she would turn and walk away, but she didn't. She hesitated, then slowly pushed the stroller toward me. She stopped a few feet away, a wall of books between us. Amelia, she said, her voice quiet. Clarissa, I replied, my own voice steady. The little girl in the stroller babbled and pointed at me. Who dat? Clarissa looked down at her daughter, a complicated expression on her face. That's your Aunt Amelia, Lily. She looked back at me. She sleeps in her room every night. She loves the animals on the wall. The owl is her favorite. She calls him Hoo-Hoo. My throat tightened. I pictured my niece in the cradle I designed, looking up at the mural I painted, finding comfort in my art. The gift had reached its intended recipient after all. I'm glad, I managed to say. An awkward silence stretched between us. I could see a war happening behind her eyes. The pride, the anger, the deeply ingrained need to be right, all of it battling with some other, newer emotion. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The apology I had waited for, the one I thought I needed, wasn't going to come. And in that moment, I realized I didn't need it anymore. My peace was no longer contingent on her remorse. My value was not determined by her validation. The article was very impressive, she said finally, looking away. Your work is beautiful. It was the closest she could get to an admission, to a compliment, to an apology. It was a single, tiny white flag waved from across a vast and ravaged battlefield. I gave her a small, genuine smile. Not the mask from the baby shower, but a real one. Thank you, Clarissa. It was nice to see you. And with that, I turned and walked away. I didn't need to fix her, and I didn't need to fight her. I just needed to be free of her. The story of us wasn't over, but my chapter of suffering was. I walked out of the bookstore and into the crisp autumn air, my own life stretching out before me, a blank canvas waiting for its next design. And this time, I was signing my own name.